I'm going to start out with a couple of things, and then we'll go from there. One is, as you know, many of you know, Alpha is just in the last 15 days moved forward with the purchasing of Massey Coal Company. And if you want to talk about culture, if this had been like 2 months from now, I'd probably be speaking a whole different set of slides on taking two cultures. Of course, when Foundation was merged with Massey, we went through the cultural development, but it was a much closer culture relative to safety and relative to the culture in general. So, you know, when we get into the panel discussion, if people want to ask about that, I'll try to answer the cultural things with the Massey and us, but what I'm saying, with 15 days of experience at it, we'll see what that means. Secondly, I think it's hard to talk about the cultural stuff in a I have some slides that are more general. I'm going to jump over them pretty quickly because I think the first series of speakers have really clearly set the tone for culture and set the tone for what it looks like in an overarching broad view. I'm going to try to focus down to where the rubber meets the road, that day-to-day activity, and I'm also going to try to use some anecdotals as I go through it, trying to explain what those are. Now, I look around the room. I know most of the people here, and I know several of them are from our operations, and they will be the first to tell you that our culture is very difficult to say that it is a universal culture. You know, it's at the mine sites. I'm going to point to Ted over here from Cumberland and Jim Pavlik over here from Amfire, 120 miles up the road from each other. I guarantee the cultures are much different, you know. And so how do you do that? How do you put an overarching process in place when they're entirely different? And then I spent a lot of my time in southern West Virginia, Virginia and Kentucky, and I can tell you that it's even more so relative to culture. So when I say things here, I want to be clear. This is my disclaimer. I want to be clear that some of this is things that we have accomplished in some places, and we're less than fully accomplished in others. You know, and forget the Massey side of it. This is just the Alpha side of it. So we've got some. You know, it's all that part of the process. All my disclaimers are done. I'm gonna move on. Okay. The key here is every employee to personally champion the safety process. That's what we're trying to accomplish. We're a very strong believer that that is the key. And I'm going to go back to this picture at the end of the thing and comment on it. Okay. Now, you may have seen this. I stole this off of Tom, but I told him, and he gave me permission to use it after I stole it. Tom and I worked together on another committee, and I really liked it. And all I wanted to do to say here, and Tom's covered this a heck of a lot better than I ever will, so I'm going to jump over to where the point I wanted to make. And it's that our running right safety culture is not really an accurate statement. Running right is an entire culture. It's not a program, it's what we do every day. That's critical. And it gets to that question and answer that went on just before this, what comes first, a culture or safety culture and all that. In my view, you establish a culture, it evolves, you process it, you try to grow it, you try to move it, you try to make things happen, but it's the entire culture, the safety culture lays underneath of that. So in our case here, we're saying that running right safety is following all the procedures, not cutting corners. It's not taking chances. It's doing the right thing, and it's saying that no task is so urgent that we won't do it right. We could say, those are words. Those are just words. It's getting back to Tom's slide here, it's getting that leadership. And that leadership doesn't have to be just the general manager, just the CEO, the chairman of the board. It's all the way down to other people, whoever that leader is, really believing that and making it happen on a day-to-day basis. My comment always is, I'll see how you react in a crisis before I judge what your real true culture and leadership is. you know, you know, because I can speak the nice words up here, and you can all say, wow, that's a really good guy. See me while I'm driving illegally or, or wherever I'm doing here. And by the way, I think when we talk about car accidents, by far, and I'm sure everyone in this room will say this, by far, the most likely fatal type accidents I've been around have been near misses where I've never had a scratch in a car or on me. My fender benders and bumping a fender on somebody else's car weren't the ones that made my heart pound. They were the ones that nothing happened. Okay, now Tom's already said this, a couple of the other guys have, so I'll just jump over it. Total safety culture is people actively caring on a continuous basis for the safety of each other and themselves. Actively caring, I think, is really the critical words. Okay, we try to align it, our culture, and ideally all our systems are engineered in such a way that the choices employees make, because of the environment the systems we create do not compromise those values and expectations of running right. Anybody here knows that when we set systems in place, processes, policies, whatever, we give our employees good options and we give them bad options. And if the bad option is easier and more logical, it's pretty darn hard to stop that from occurring. And we're going to get into our running right observation process in a moment, but I'm going to anecdotally give you a little story. Had cards coming in at one of our mines, and it's not one of Jim's mines, but he'd appreciate the cards. Impermissible three-wheelers found up in by the last open crosscut. Perfectly illegal, right? Everyone here would cite us. I know these guys sitting over here, the enforcement guys, would cite us with a heartbeat. So everybody's going through, we're talking about how do we do this, what's wrong, are they trained, and blah, blah, blah. And finally someone said, well, you know what the problem is? I said, no, what's the problem? Said, we don't have enough permissible rides. You're a mechanic, you're on midnight shift, there's no gas in this section, you've got a 150, 200 pound something that you have to bring up to the place. Are you going to stop and drag it and carry it in 38 inches of coal in mud? Or are you going to ride up there and unload it? Common sense. We gave those people only one pathway. We gave them two pathways, the legal compliant pathway, but we gave them a pathway that said, this is the logical way to do it. You've got to work. That's why I put that Tom's thing up about systems and leadership and culture. If we don't work on our systems to try to make them the most logical way you can, you're going to fight all the time to do the right thing because you made it too easy the other way. Okay, what's leadership? The golden rule, how we treat each other and how we treat our workers. Okay, those are all fancy words, putting people first. You got to live that. You got to live that. Our chairman, and I have him on a video if it works. Jim gave me the video, so hopefully it works. Because it didn't work when I did it, because you guys know I'm not a computer whiz kid by any means. But carries a card in his wallet. And on that card are names. And it's names of every guy that died, every person who has died under his direction. Okay? And what he says to us is that these are the legacy, and we will do the right thing so that there's no more cards, no more names on my card. Okay? Unfortunately, we've had to add names. And, but that sets the tone for how you do your business. And by the way, this is our CEO. Well, I just hit the wrong. That is our CEO talking there. Okay. Now, I got this off of a Taproot's newsletter, but I thought it was important. There's all kinds of cultures out there. And if anybody doesn't believe that they have those cultures inside their own culture, inside their own systems, inside their own organizations, then we're being naive. We all have see no evil culture. Everything's fine here. And sometimes when you're measuring accidents, someone talked about measuring NFDL rates or measuring those kind of rates. Sometimes you're saying everything's fine because I have a low accident rate. No one told me. You don't get feedback from employees, or you willfully don't want to hear what they have to tell you, then you're going to have that. One of our executive vice presidents, who is our chief operating officer, said about asking employees what the problems are. Expect for them to tell you and expect to be horrified. They're going to tell you something that went on at their mind, something that they're concerned about, that you'd want to jump up and say, that can't be happening here. And he said, you want to pound the table and say, and it won't happen here. You won't get a lot of feedback that way. So you got to step back, but you got to sit there and understand that when you ask for the truth still sometimes hurt. So that's culture. That's being willing to accept that, and not this kind of thing where no one told me because I don't want to know. Don't tell me what I don't want to know. Okay, how do we fit it? We believe, and we've switched from behavior-based to people-based as a word. Stole that from Scott Geller, by the way. And what we're saying is that behavioral-based has caused a lot of turmoil. Ted, caused you a little turmoil with your workforce, where they don't want to hear the word behavior because they believe what you're doing is blaming them. People-based, broader. But that's all we're saying is we want people-based safety. We want you to be safe and do the right thing. And so what we're trying to do is avoid those 6 failures. And those are the kind of things that we all have. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the employee involvement group and performance groups in a second or so. Well, for me, it'll be more than a second. You guys know that. Okay, this is a safety policy. Those are words. They're all good words. There's nothing wrong with any of those words. They're words. Okay, but here's where the words play out. Every employee is encouraged to identify at-risk behaviors and hazardous conditions that can be corrected before they become injuries. That's key. I think that's what we've talked about, the speakers have talked about. How do you do that? We got to correct those identified behaviors and hazards prior to causing injuries. That's what we're trying to do with our employee-driven observation process. Now, that's a busy slide in some respects, but what it basically says is we want you to observe things. And what we say is we always talk about the word brother's keeper in the mining industry. We're all our brother's keeper, right? Anybody ever use that phrase? Anybody when they're doing? Okay. We all have. But that brother's apostrophe goes in front of the S, meaning individuals. We're trying to say brothers, move that apostrophe to the other side of the S. We all want to protect our employees. And I'm going to use an example of that. When we take a card and you write something on it, we try to, and I'm going to go through the process here in a second without all that language here. I'm going to go down to what's reality. We try to take those cards and those things that tell us that there's a problem, we try to solve that problem, but we also try to get it out to other people. Jim will submit an issue and it goes throughout the whole company. Okay, he'll say this happened or this nearly happened or this is a problem, and we try to get it throughout the company. An example I'll use, and this is where employees have to feel comfortable, and I think Tom used the phrase, they have to feel willing to tell you what's going on. Had an issue at one of our surface mines. Had a truck bed maintenance being done. They had the truck bed up, had it properly blocked. The operator of the truck left his lunch bucket or whatever it was up in the truck, went up to get it, told the mechanic I'm going to go up and get it. He hit the lever that would have disengaged the bed and we'd have had a fatality. No fatality, nothing. Mechanic had it properly blocked. But they felt strongly enough about it that they talked to the safety person. They put together a running right card, observation card. They passed it on. We looked at it and said, this is pretty important because it means a couple things. One, it's an event, but more importantly, it's doing the right thing when nobody's injured. So we made it a lessons learned, made it a package. We sent it out to all the mines. And we talked about it in 2 different ways. One, it's just a practical side of the card, of the event, but more importantly, it's telling people, being prepared to tell people when we have near misses so we can prevent them from becoming real hits. That card went throughout the whole company, and as luck would have it, Bruce Wattsman from NMA sent a note out, I'm with Tom because I think it was Tom was in the meeting, said, help. So I clicked on that email, said, what the heck he wants help for? So I need a safety message. I have a CEO meeting starting in an hour or whatever it was. So I had just gotten this thing. It was all packaged up. I shipped it. I hit a button and sent it to him, said, here, use this one. He used it, put it on Safety Share, which is an NMA.org, and that hits have come from on that little safety talk, safety message from internationally. I told those two mechanics, the mechanic and a driver, I said, and the safety guy, I said, by you guys being willing to share, you've passed it on throughout the entire Alpha organization, you've passed it on throughout the entire United States organization, and sort of passed it throughout the world mining organizations. I said, some driver or some mechanic in South Africa might be going home tonight because you guys did the right thing. You chose to do the right thing. I can't make you do that. I can't force you to do that. I can't use a club. I can't use a reward system. I can't use anything to get you to have a value that you have. And only we can do is try to celebrate those values. And that's to me, all that fancy stuff that we put on a slide comes down to that. We try to change at-risk behaviors, and we utilize the safety observation cards, and the report is anonymous. We don't want to know, one of our guys has a phrase, I want to know the sin, I don't want to know who the sinners are. Okay? Tell me what happened, tell me what we have to do to change, but don't tell me who did it. Do we have a disciplinary program? Yeah, we have all those things in place, but that's unrelated to this. This is telling people, letting people tell us what we need to do to change. That's the card. Very simple. We've gone through complicated cards. We've gone through all these different things, and we said miners really don't want to fill out a lot of complicated checklist forms and all that stuff. And we want this done by hourly workers as well as foremen. This is not a foreman-driven program. It's an employee-driven program. Those places where it's being driven at its peak, properly, we get thousands of cards, a lot of at-risk behaviors, a lot of changes, a lot of thought about how to make those changes occur. Those places where we aren't getting that, we have more problems. And it's culture, it's development, it's trying to get things, in Canada it's leadership, getting people to say that this makes sense. We have a little different than Deming. That's only because we didn't want to steal off of Deming. I stole off of Tom, I stole off of Scott, I didn't want to steal off of Deming. Okay. We have the operational improvement cards. It's the same thing, trying to get better, continuous improve and get better. Okay, and I want to talk about EIG meetings because this is where real rubber meets the road. EIG is employee involvement groups. They're driven and run by the hourly people. Typically the superintendent or foreman are part of the team, but as much as possible, they need to be a team member and not the team leader. So you look for that champion, that guy to lead it. And they look at all these cards, they go through them, they clean up the ones that are garbage in terms of, they answer every one of them in terms of knowing that they've read them and dealt with them, but they try to focus, and then they try to find what's trends, what are issues, what are things more important than just a singular event. Some of the singular events, you can put a safety talk out. Trends, like I talked about the permissible vehicle, that was coming in cards. The impermissible vehicle was coming in on multiple cards, multiple months. And the guys finally said, okay, we got to solve this problem. This is a bigger problem than just putting out a safety talk. First couple times they put out safety talks, don't take a permissible vehicle in by the last open crosscut. Then they said, no, we got to go out and problem solve. There's something going on here that's beyond just the thing. Now, you and I both know the hourly guys knew exactly what was going on. But that's the idea, and the idea is to take that information and get it. Those things are critical to the whole organization, go up to the organization. They typically go through what we call performance group meetings. Performance group meetings are multiple minds meeting together to talk about their issues. For instance, all of AmFire Minds will get together in one group and talk and go through the things that they found, issues, and then start another workload of things that we have to do to get better. And again, these meetings are typically run by different people. One of my little stories is when, as a corporation, January, we went around and met with each business unit to talk about safety goals for the next year and performance and the kind of things you do when you have my kind of job. You know, in other words, you don't do a lot of anything valuable. And you try to get that done. And we had some very good presentations. We had great presentations. I mean, nice slide, PowerPoints, beautiful. We went to the one where I think the running right has evolved from a culture is probably the most evolved. And the speakers were 4 hourly guys and gals, mixture. The managers never spoke. They sat in the room. The president just got up to introduce the speakers. And the one speaker said, I heard him talking to the safety director before the meeting, and he said, who's going to be in the room? What am I supposed to talk about? He said, you're supposed to tell them what your plans are for this year. What you guys are going to do to mine to make it safer and better? Okay. Who's going to be in the room? He said, nobody important. Just go ahead and talk. And he got up to talk. He said, aren't you the chairman of the board? He said, yeah. He said, aren't you the CEO? He said, yeah. He said, I thought they said there was nobody important in here. And one of them stood up and said, you're the most important man in this room right now. You know, you go ahead and say what you have to say. And I said, the look in the eyes of those 4 people were the first time we've all said all accidents are preventable. Is there anybody in this room who hasn't said that? I've said it all the time. As the first time in my life that I sit there and listen to a group of men and women talk, and truly they believe it. They're going to try to make it happen. Will they make it happen? I don't know, but they're certainly going to try because they think they have the right attitude and right process. That's PG meetings. Now, Tom had this up with a little different slide, so I'm going to jump over it. All I can tell you is if I'd be lying to you if I said Alpha was on the 2 side. We were in the middle of mixed back and forth. Like maybe I shouldn't say like everybody else. It's not my job to tell you what other people are, but I can tell you we have a lot of work to do. Okay. I said I wasn't going to talk about the mass integration. I just put one slide up. These are things we know we have to do. We got to get employee participation. We got to get effective local leadership. That's critical to anything. We have the higher leadership. I've commented on a couple anecdotals about that. And we know we have the executive leadership commitment and support. And we're saying we're going to implement our running right process without compromise. Our president stood up at a meeting with all the integrated group, 100 and some people were in the room. And he said, we have 3 goals. 1, implement the running right process throughout the organization. That's their first priority of everybody in this room. Second priority is to establish your teams and your staffing, put people in their places where they belong, get them trained to do the jobs that we're going to assign them to. And then thirdly, try to mine some coal. That's the third part of it. He said, don't worry about the third one until you get the first 2 in place. Thank you, sir. I told Jim you might have to jump up and grab me around the throat if I keep talking beyond my time. Okay, and Kurt Koss is the person who said that. I just took a couple other quotes. He said when we were talking about running right, the 3 pillars are really foundations. One's taking care of our employees, which is really what we're talking about. The second's taking care of our customers. Third, taking care of communities where we conduct our business. And he also said, when to run the right way, look forward. We want to look down the road and be the best we can be. Don't look backward except to pick up information. Don't blame people for what happened in the past. Look forward to what we're doing. These are just things I picked up from guys and cards. Doing the right thing when we were alone and no one would know if you didn't. That's what running right is. Running safe, legal, and productive. Running right is a way of life. It shouldn't be a motto, not a motto. Running right is doing things the right way when it means taking more time. That's hourly guys defining better than I will, better than Tom will, better than all of us will when we're up here talking. Now, the test. This is the chairman of the board, and I'm going to try to make this thing play. Or I'm going to have somebody come up here and try to make this little thing play. I'm not getting any volunteers jumping up here. Mark's coming. Okay, I mean, I made a couple hints here, guys. I'm getting my glasses out. That's the best I can do. What happened, I tried to embed this in my talk. It didn't work. Jim did it this morning while we were sitting here. Jim and Mark did it this morning while we were getting ready. While he's doing that, I'm going to comment. What are the hands? Is that going to be ready to play? Okay. Thank you, Jim.
This morning I want to talk just a few minutes about the culture of safety in our company and how important and integral it is to everything that we do. We recognize that how we behave at the workplace and also at home are important to us, going home safe every day and being with our family. Safety is something you have to think about all the time. It's what we do, how we do it that's so important. Also, we have to recognize that from my position all the way through upper management, we're the ones that have to lead. We have to lead by example. We have to walk the walk. We can't just talk about safety. We have to demonstrate ourselves in how we work around the mine, how we work in our everyday lives, and how we indicate to all of the employees how important safety is for each and every one of them and their families. We've got to be conscious of how it's a behavior-based type activity, that we can't just rely on the props and the safety tools that we have, but we have to think about it consciously. We have to watch out for each other. There's a lot of times that an employee might be doing something that someone may walk by and say, hey, don't do that. You know, think about it. Get some help. Don't pick that up by yourself. Use the proper equipment. Wear your safety glasses. Have your safety gloves on. These all are the little things that we can do every day to prevent the type of injuries that just frustrate us in some way, but cost us dearly in others, and they cost us most in how it impacts the employee and their families. What makes it important to me as far as my role in safety and how I want the employees to be behaviorally based in terms of their safety influence is how it affects their families. Because whenever we have an injury, then people's families are impacted. And when we have an injury or a major accident, I go and try to talk to that family, because when I look at that family member and I look at that employee, that life may be changed over an accident, that's what really pushes me to try to do whatever we can in this company to be the safest company we can be. I don't want anybody's life changed because they were here trying to earn a living for their family, and then something happened and it changes them. Yes, we've got 3,600 employees, but we don't want a single one of them to be impacted by an accident at this company.
Actually, we're now up to 14,000, but Mike, when he did this, was at the beginning. Now I'm going to make a couple other anecdotals, and I'm going to finish up here because Jim said I had 5, and Dr. Monty said I could take another 5. Number one, what are the hands? It's a symbol of Daddy's hands. Mike Quillen says that those are the hands of a coal miner. And he tells every person in the corporate office, I haven't seen a continuous miner or shuttle car run through this building yet. And you're not making any money. Daddy is making the money for us. Daddy has to go home every night to his family, and that is your role and responsibility. I don't care if you're an accountant or the safety vice president, that is your job. And operational people understand that's their real job, okay? And does Mike walk the walk and live the talk, and does his senior executives do? Yeah, anecdotally, I can tell you story after story. I'm gonna just use 2. Mike Quillen, we had 7 rescue teams at Upper Big Branch. Mike Quillen flew in, and all he wanted to know was his boys okay? It still breaks me up because I was sitting there, and Mike says, I said, you want to see the problems? He said, nope. Just want to make sure they're all okay. I trust you guys to do your job to protect them. I just want to talk to them. That's all he cared about. Secondly is, Mike, we had a mine emergency plan, and someone forgot to put in the code. We send codes out, the buzz on your buzzer, and as Jim says, it knows it says test. Somebody forgot to put test on that one time. So Mike gets one at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he drives 100 miles an hour and shows up to mine, and there's a test. And I'm glad I wasn't vice president of safety at that time, but everyone's figuring who gets fired here. And all Mike smiled and said, if there's nobody hurt, there's no event, I'm fine. And so he said, but you got to find me a phone because I've already called for this rescue team, that rescue team, for other companies. And he just laughed about it. That's culture. That's taking the right thing. And that's the thing. And candidly, we power the world through the energy of our people. That's what we want to do. And at the end of the day, we want them to go home.